Hi, it's Dr. Leona Allen, founder of Freedom Health Systems, and I'm here to help you achieve more freedom in your health and your life. And the message I want to talk about today is that the journey to healing is not passive. You know, it takes work, it takes time, and it takes patience. Let me start off with an analogy that I think most of you will understand. And it's when you plant a seed. You know, a seed has its potential to grow into a vegetable, a fruit, a large oak tree, whatever it is, it all starts with a seed. But how that seed starts to grow, it has to be nurtured, it has to be watered, it has to have the right environment or the conditions to survive. It has to be protected, because if it gets eaten by an animal or if it's destroyed by pests, it won't survive. So a lot of these conditions are required in order for the seed to grow into its full potential. And that's how we have to see our own seed, our own desire, our own goals, our own dreams. You know, if that seed was put in you that you want to get healthy, that you want to take better care of yourself, that you want to lose weight. And this doesn't just apply to our health goals. It could apply to anything. That seed of starting a new business or that seed of going back to school, whatever it is. You know, I say all the time that how you do anything is how you do everything. So when I'm talking about seeds, again, I'm talking about our thoughts, our desires, our full potential. It all starts with a seed. It all starts with a thought. I remember when I was about 8 years old, that seed was planted that I wanted to be somewhere in the healing profession. I was fascinated with human bodies. I always wondered why people got sick or how diseases occurred, how the body worked, how babies were created in the stomach, or, well, back then I thought it was the stomach, but back then it was like, how did that happen? How did that process happen? And I was always fascinated. You know, if you're old enough, you'll remember the big encyclopedias. You know, I think my parents had about a set of, about 20 books or so, and they would be labeled A through Z. And I would go through them, fascinated with all the different diseases and deformities and illnesses and what they looked like. And some of them were just disgusting. It was so disgusting. At that age, I was like, you know what? I need to take care of myself because I didn't want these diseases. So that's where my seed was planted. But unfortunately, in our systems today, you know, like in the public school systems and universities, they don't really feed our seed. You know, we're taught a curriculum, we're taught how to pass standardized tests, do our homework, get the good grades. But I wonder how different the world would be if when we discovered that seed or our potential, that it was actually nourished and protected and groomed so that we can be the people that we are on this planet to be. Because a lot of us haven't even reached our full potential because number one, we haven't gotten in touch with that potential, or number two, we were very passive and never allowed that potential to grow or put ourselves in that environment so that we can grow. So long story short, you know, I did go through the school, universities, and even though I thought I even went to Michigan State as a pre-med major, but by the time I graduated, I decided to be an engineer because back then I was like, oh my goodness, 4 years of college, and then I have to do like 4 to 5 years of internship. And I was saying, man, I'll be almost 30 years old before I get a real paycheck. So back then, you know, 30 was old to me. And I was like, I didn't want to put in that time. I just wanted to get a degree, get a good job, and be done and start working right away. So back then, I didn't really think about the importance of the patience and really putting the time in and really making sure that I took all the steps that were required. I wanted to hurry up and get done with college. So I ended up graduating with an engineering degree, got a job at Ford Motor Company, worked there for about 4 years. But it didn't take long for me. I mean, I was there for 4 years, but I think after 2 years, I really realized that I was misplaced. I didn't feel like that I was in a position that I can thrive or grow. I got unhappy. I mean, the job was great. It had nothing to do with the job. It had to do with where I was supposed to be. Because if you think of native plants and things like that. They do better in certain conditions. Some plants do better in the heat. Some plants do better in the fall. Some plants are very seasonal. So it's very important that you're in the right position, the right place, at the right conditions, at the right time. So that's really important. So at the time, I realized, you know what, my passion was still in health. But then it had evolved to more natural health. Back then I was more familiar with the medical field and diseases and surgeries and things like that. But then as I got older, I started to learn more about natural healing and prevention. So I was fascinated with chiropractic and exercise and herbs. So I didn't really start picking up on that aspect until my mid to late 20s. And the more I learned about it, the fascinating it was. And I said, you know what? This is still touching into that initial seed when I was 8 years old. I guess it's that about 15 years later or something. Let me do the math here. So let's see. It was about, I think I came to that realization about 1995. And I think that seed was planted in about 1979. So yeah, about 16 years later, I still have this seed that I hadn't planted. I had it, I carried it around, but I think around the mid-90s was when I said, you know what, it's time to put this seed in an environment that I can nourish it and grow. So I was living in Michigan at the time. So what I did was, I literally resigned from my job, moved to Georgia, Marietta, Georgia, got a new place there, and I did a lot. I mean, at the time I was debt free. I mean, I took a lot of risks. I bought a condo there. I got student loans. I left a well-paid job with amazing benefits. I left friends and family. So that was a lot, and a lot of people thought I was really crazy to do that. But I knew that the seed in me was going to die if I didn't do anything about this. I really felt like I was just not going to thrive in the position that I was in. So I, moved to Georgia and I decided to plant that seed. So I had to go back to school, take board exams, took seminars. I learned everything I could. I was older now. I was ready to put in the time. It took about 3.5 years to to get my chiropractic degree. And then the real work started, deciding where to practice, how to practice, finding the location. Should I practice alone or with a group? I mean, it never ends, because I think sometimes we think we go to school, we make the decision, and then as soon as we graduate, all opportunities will just head our way, But it takes work. And I had to take seminars and go to, confide in other successful doctors to find out how they did it. And it takes work. So I knew up front that it was going to be hard. And I realized it was harder than I really thought. And even in my coaching programs, I tell people up front, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging because I think we get misled into thinking all you have to do is get a degree and you're all set. No, we got to understand that you can't be passive. You can't just sit there and hope for things to happen. You got to get in there and face those challenges. You got to get in there and learn. You got to get in there and learn from your mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. Trust me, my first 5 years in practice were probably the worst. Within the first 5 years, I was struggling. And not only was I struggling with my own health issues, which I ended up learning a lot from that because it was my health issues that helped me coach others to health. I had to learn how to recover from my own issues. So sometimes these struggles and challenges have a purpose in life to actually help you feed that seed. Sometimes those storms that we face do make us stronger and more resilient. So that's what happens to us. We get stronger as we get beat down by those disappointments, as we learn to pick ourselves up from those setbacks. That's what makes us stronger. But when you're passive, you don't learn from that. You end up getting nowhere if you're passive. So that's what I mean by saying this process is not passive. Because I believe a lot of our dreams are crushed due to passivity. I think passivity is the killer of most dreams. It's the killer of most people's potential because they're not willing to go in there, get the education, get the coaching, hang out with like-minded people. They just sit there in a victim state, not really willing to push themselves to a greater potential. And that's a very sad thing to see when I could see someone that desires to do something. They talk about it, but they're not willing to do anything about it because they believe that it's too hard or too expensive, or they're not patient, or they didn't succeed the first time. So they're like, I'm not going to do that again. That was too much. So the point I want to make is, the process is not passive. You got to be willing to put in the time, put in the effort, put in the learning, because we all have gifts. We all have a seed that needs to grow inside every one of us. And sometimes a lot of us aren't fortunate enough to meet that person that can help nourish us for us or put us in the right direction. Sometimes we got to figure that out ourselves, and that makes it a lot difficult. Because my parents didn't grow up with this type of knowledge. They grew up with the mindset that you just went through the system, got your degree, got your job with benefits, and that was it. But we weren't taught to really discover what we're good at, what we're really meant here to be, or what our purpose is in life. So I really wanted to share that because I see so many people my age and older who have wished they could have just really invested in their potential, that they really wish they had nourished that seed. And I don't care how old you are, whether you're 50 or 60, you still have that seed inside of you that you never allowed to plant. Do it now. Start now. Don't be afraid, because it's afraid. I mean, I hear it a lot. Oh, I'm too old to do it now. I missed my opportunity. No, you didn't. I'm sure you can do something, because that's nothing more fulfilling than living a life of purpose. There's nothing more fulfilling than doing something that you know can serve others, because your dream is not just for you. Other people can benefit from what you have to offer. I mean, think about it. If I never planted that seed and I stayed in Michigan as an engineer, what about the lives that I wouldn't have been able to touch the lives that I touch today. I would have missed that opportunity if I did not make that move, oh gosh, over 20 years ago. It's not an easy process, but it's worth it. It's worth having a purpose every time you wake up in the morning. It's worth it knowing that everything you say or do is helping someone else. Other people suffer if you do not plant your seed. That's my message for today. And until next time, go out there, plant your seed, nourish your seed, and achieve more freedom in your health and your life.